Willow Creek Springs presents Healthy Living with your host, Joe Grumbine.
Well, hello and welcome back to the Healthy Living podcast. And today we got a very special guest. We have a new guest, and her name is Yani. And I have known Yani for, probably at least 10 years.
A little bit over, actually. It's 11 years actually.
11 years. So we go back a little bit, and we've shared a lot of experiences that have a lot to do with healthy living. So this is going to be the beginning of what likely will be another recurring guest, and we've got a lot to share. And Yanni's got a huge wealth of experience in a number of different topics that are connected to healthy living. And I think it's important for people to realize that, a lot of times we have guests on the show that have answers. A lot of times we have guests on the show that have solved their own problems. A lot of times we have guests on the show that are struggling through problems. And Yanni's got a little bit of all of that. So that's really makes for some interesting conversations. So a lot of times you get people, doctors and whatnot, that have a lot of experience. They've been to school and they've seen so much and done so much, but maybe they've never been sick. And there's a one-sided experience that sometimes comes from that. And then you have people that have struggled with ailments and illnesses, and they've know the sickness part of it pretty well, but solving it and finding the health can be problematic. And then we've got all of the other places in between, and you cover a lot of ground. So welcome to the show, Yani. And I want to really give an opportunity for you to share some of your life experience and just let us know where you come from, what brings you here, and what makes you have the experience that we're relying on here.
Well, thank you, Joe, for having me in the show. And this is actually the first time for me. I'm not a camera person, but here I am.
All right. It's a piece of cake, and 99% of the people listening to the show will never see the video version of it. So, you got your issues, I've got mine, and we just don't worry about it. It's the conversation that matters. The words are what are important. And most of the platforms that people hear this on are just an audio file anyways.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to share my story, and as you say, it will be continuous because I'm going to do a couple because I have a long story to tell. Mm-hmm. Actually, I wanted to share that one of the reasons why I decided to get into the cannabis business, or CBD business to say, is because of the elements that I myself have gone through. In 97, I was diagnosed with terminal cancer, breast cancer at that time. And a really good friend of mine said to me, and she's also a chef, she said to me, "What are you going to do?" And I'm like, I as well enjoy the time that I have. And she's like, "That's BS. We're going to do something about it." And at that time, I had no idea what being medicated felt like. Absolutely not. And so one day,
by medicated, you're talking about cannabis. You're talking about being high.
Being high, yes.
All right. I mean, and the reason why I even point that out is people make a huge amount of assumptions about this show. And once you start listening to the show, you realize, oh, wow, there isn't anything that you can assume, because some people assume that everybody on this show is aware of and knows all about cannabis. And some people that have been guests on the show don't know the first thing about it. So it's important to sort of establish the backstory, which I'm glad you're doing.
Okay, thank you. So anyhow, she said, I'm kidnapping you. You have to talk to your doctor. So I went ahead and I had to sign a release with my doctors that I would not do any chemo or any radiation for 3 months. And we're talking here back in 97, the doctor had given me 18 months to live. So it's like, well, what do I have to lose? It would be nice. I never had this experience of being high, to say. So went to her house, And I could tell you for 3 months, I have no idea what happened. Only thing I remember is she came home one day with this big bag of green stuff. No idea. I'm a little bit of my background. My parents were very religious, or are very religious, and they kept us very sheltered. So we had not experienced anything that had to do with drugs or anything that had to do with alcohol. My dad stopped drinking in 77, and we never saw it around the house. So, I to say it was like the first time. So she comes in with this big old bag, and, crock pot, and she goes, "I'm gonna have to do this outside because it smells." And I'm like, "Okay." I remember her putting the cannabis on a tray, putting it in the oven for a little bit, took it out, and then went outside. So she came in with this really dark stuff. I mean, and it was like a little tiny spoon, and she's like, "I want you to try this." And she was making RSO, Rick Simpson oil, or what we would say is just, how else would you describe it? Because
Call
I
it
already,
full plant cannabis extract, whole plant extract.
so it was so horrible that I couldn't down it. So what she did is she made little tiny balls and put them in the freezer. So the little balls, they were not frozen, but I was able to just swallow it. She didn't want to put it in a capsule or anything, because I'm like, "Can you put it in a capsule?" And she's like, "No, you have to have the full effect." And from that day forward, I don't remember anything. All that I remember is getting up to go to the bathroom, getting up to eat, and she had me juicing. She was giving me greens. And like I said, I don't remember. Went back to the doctor, came in, and I said, "Okay, I'm ready." And he's like, "What did you do?" And I told him what I did.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Okay." I mean, my oncologist, he was fantastic. So I went in, and we started he did another set of testing and everything. So my cancer at that point had gone from stage 5 to stage 2. And he said to me, he goes, "This is unbelievable. I haven't seen anything like this before." And I told him, I said, "Well, my friend did he goes, he stopped me right away. He goes, "I don't want to know anything about it. Whatever you did has worked. And now we just got to build you up." We're talking back in 97. I didn't meet you till 2012.
Yeah.
But from that time, I started studying, and I didn't know anything about cannabis. And I came around, that's where Liz McDuffie comes into the plate. She has an organization up in Pasadena that is the medical cannabis practitioners. So I decided to take her class. I tell you, that it was the best thing that I could have done, because it gave me the experience and the knowledge to be able to communicate to other people what the cannabis plant does. So for me, it has become my way of living, to say. I have not stopped my regular medications, and I want to make sure that everybody knows that. I just use it as a supplement, and is what is keeping me up. So from really quick, because I want to make it as short as possible.
Yeah.
From the chemotherapy and the radiation, I developed lupus and fibromyalgia. So my daily it's very difficult. I mean, getting up in the morning, but I always just keep my my cannabis capsules and my regular capsules on the side of my bed. But continuing with the story, when I met Liz, I was having a really hard time at that time, because I go through spells of being good and being sick, and in the last 3 years, it's just been very difficult. But anyhow, going back to this, I found out the second part of the cannabis plant, which is the CBD part of it.
Ah.
That became my savior, to say, or the supplement to go to. She said one day to me, she looked at me, and I was in so much pain. She looked at me and she goes, "Try this." She gave me this little bottle with a red label that it had, it said 1-to-1. And now I knew the experience of being high. But when she gave me that capsule, the high that you get from the from the capsules or the liquid form, and plus the supplements that are added or the herbs that are added, it was like my brain went, oh, and my body for the first time in, I would say, 10 years, felt relief.
Wow.
And that was just a little bit of oil. Um, and that's when Joe comes into play. Uh, Liz believed that I had a good opportunity, and she said, "You're going to be a good practitioner, but because of your disabilities, you have to do it a little bit different." So I decided, okay, what can I do? So I came to visit Joe, and he sat with me, gave me some instructions, and I began to see the process. And when I saw the process, I'm like, okay, this gives me an opportunity to reach people because I know what I have gone through. And
Right.
when shares with me, I'm like, oh, this is what I could do to help you, or this is what I could do to make your life a little bit better. On my website, I have a little saying that it says discover the path of a healthy life. And right now I could tell you that I'm struggling, but I feel so much better than I was feeling before. So it's like I take advantage of those days.
Well, and I think that one of the elements that people lose sight of, especially when, you're going through complicated health issues or, multi-layered things. I have people come to me all the time that say, well, it's not working or it's not doing what I expect or whatnot. And I always come back with the most important thing that I can think of is, well, imagine if you weren't doing it, what would it be like? And the thing is we don't know sometimes how good we're making ourselves until we stop. And like, I've had a lot of people over the years. I mean, this is 30 years of making and formulating products. So you get a lot of feedback over the time. Maybe not when maybe not when you want it, but you get it when you're not expecting it. And
Right.
people come to me and they'll say, you know, I think I wasn't sure if your stuff was working or not. It seemed like, I don't know, maybe it was helping. And then
Okay.
one day I ran out. And that's when I realized how much good it did, because it's a strange thing, because like your body experiences pain and your body experiences pleasure and your body experiences homeostasis or just imbalance. And you remember the pain because it reminds you, right? Like, ow, ow, ow. It just doesn't, it's like a pesky 2-year-old kid or a puppy. It's like,
Right.
remember me, remember me, remember me. And pleasure is really great too, but it goes away as fast as it comes usually, right? I mean, you feel something really nice and then whoop, it's gone. And maybe you'll remember it for a little while, but it's hard to go back and remember the feel of something, even if it's really nice. And mostly we feel nothing, right? We're just here. And so what happens, I think, is that when you are in pain and you're aware of an experience, it's just constantly reminding you, remind me, remember, remember, remember. And then all of a sudden it goes away. Well, you don't really remember that the same way you remembered the pain,
Right.
because all of a sudden it's just not there anymore. You're like, oh, cool, I feel better. And then you just get up and do more stuff. But you don't sit there and go, oh my God, I feel so good. I mean, your brain's just like, okay, we're good, go on to the next thing. So I just wanted to bring that up, because I think a lot of times people don't give enough credit for the work they're doing, because you can't tell what it would be like if you weren't doing it.
Right. Right. Well, which actually brings me to a good point that I feel that the people out there are not educated enough, or they're not aware. And that's when it comes into play. Like I said, going back to meeting you, I remember clearly sitting on your living room
Mm.
and you saying to me, your life is going to change.
Yep.
And I thought to myself, yeah, right, whatever. All that I want is I wanted to have that liquid, that little oil that just made me feel so much better.
Mhm.
But again, it's just because we are not aware of our body.
Right.
We're not aware, we're not open to think, oh, we get up in the morning and we're like, it hurts a little bit, but we don't think stretching it, or doing something because just that stretch will do it. I see the dogs or cats as soon as they get up
First
from
thing they
bed with
wake
the
up in the morning, they're like, "Ah,"
night, and
every
we
single day. They
so
know.
that's one of the things that I'm like being aware of going, oh, if I stretch in the mornings, it's
Uh-huh.
like my body feels so much better. But
Yeah.
again, it's just not being aware of your body. But when you become aware of it, then you realize, like it took me a long time to be aware of my body. But now
Mhm.
that I'm aware of my body, I'm like, okay, I'm limited to do this today. So I have to make an adjustment. Um, and I tell my clients because from doing this and becoming a practitioner, I'm able to share a lot of stories of my personal stories from what I have heard from you and the stories of the representatives that we have.
Mhm.
Um, and even educating. I want to get that message out there that um, we're not here just to sell a product.
No.
We're here to provide a product that is going to make a little bit or a big change in their life. It all depends.
I think the
I
most important thing that people need to remember, like if you are operating on any kind of a technical level and you use a tool, maybe a scale or a micrometer or a measuring tool of any kind, a lot of times you have to calibrate and you have to make sure it's set right. Otherwise you won't know, you won't measure right. You won't be able to tell is it working or not. And if you have a scale and you're trying to measure to a half a gram, is this correct or not? And you don't have it calibrated and it's accidentally measuring way over or way under, you're not going to get the right answer. And I think that a lot of times, you know, in us establishing a baseline that says, is this going to help? I think really calibrating it and saying, okay, well, where's my normal? Like,
Mhm,
what do I normally feel? And I tell people all the time, the education is the most critical piece of this, not only so that you can direct people in the best possible way, but maybe as much as that we can notice what's happening to us. So we wake up in the morning and we don't pay attention to anything. And we might have drank last night or partied or didn't get enough sleep. And then we get up in the morning and slam a cup of coffee or a Red Bull and a donut. And then we go and get into traffic and almost get in an accident and get in somebody's, then you get to work and somebody's talking behind your back and all these problems. Then you get on social media and all the nonsense that's going on. And then all these problems are happening. And then again, you're in a rush. Your boss is telling you got to hurry up. You didn't get time for lunch. You slam some chips and next thing you know, it's dinner time. You're cranky. Your kids are coming up and you don't even know what you did that made you feel the way you are. And it's usually a lot of things, when it comes to health, getting sleep, drinking water, eating good food, reducing stress, all those things that I mentioned in that little conversation are affecting everything about us. And I think that when you are starting to work with somebody with a client, as a client with products, whether it's a consumable product, a herbal product, a topical product, is to get people to go, okay, well, what's normal?
mhm,
Like, what do you normally feel like? And when is it worse and when is it better? And get them to like create a zero spot on the map that says, okay, well, when I'm not screwing things up, this is where it normally is.
right.
And then you begin to apply a treatment and say, okay, well, now that you're at zero, what does that feel? Oh, wow, that took me from 0 to 6 or from 10 to 3 or whatever your measurement is. And all of a sudden then it can click. But when you're stuck in the middle of chaos and mayhem and bad habits and bad choices, and then all of a sudden, oh, I feel lousy, and then you take a pill and you don't notice that it didn't really
Right.
do anything. You're like, well, how are you going to get through all that with one little pill?
Well, for me, like I said, when you said, and I use those words with my clients all the time, is microdosing, I would say, it and explaining to people, letting them know that's why I decided to open Yardley's Holistic. And from that, I developed Yardley's Naturals, which is the company that sells the products. So for
Well, tell me
me,
the origin of Yardley. Where is Yardley?
okay, Yardley comes and it's a funny story. As I had already told, 97, I was diagnosed with cancer. And when I found out that I wasn't going to die, I had to make a change. And everybody says step by step, right? So for me, it wasn't step by step because my step, it was a yard.
Ah,
So that's where Yardley comes
got
from
it.
yard and then Lee, because I wasn't going to put yard naturals. It just didn't work.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I was
Taking
talking
big
to a friend,
steps.
and then she said, well, she goes, it's a really nice story. So just
Yeah.
leave it. And when people ask you, tell them, and then it'll be like, oh, wow. So yeah, for me, a step by step, it wasn't little steps because I was doing the yard. My step was a yard.
Big
Um,
steps.
because it, it didn't matter how hard or how difficult it was. My mom has said to me, children do not die before their parents. And
That's
that
fair.
was my encouragement.
Yeah.
Or my dad sitting at the door and just really, because he knew I hated when he said things to me, but he would stand at the door and I'm like throwing up, sick as a dog. And he would say to me, goes, bad weed never dies, and would leave. Just leave. And it just pissed me off. And I would have to, for it. So it's like my parents were big encouragement for that. So it's like I kind of took, I saw myself as the people that run with the pole. I don't know what the name of that is, and they jump over. So they
Oh, like a pole vaulter?
or a jumper that takes like and it
A
just
pole
jumps.
vaulter, when you take the pole and they throw you over. Yeah, that's a
So
pole vaulter.
that's how I felt I had to do it because I
Ah,
had to prove that number one, I was not bad weed.
right,
Number two is that I couldn't die before my mother.
right.
So, that was my encouragement. So that's where
Good.
you're.
Well, finding that motivation, I did a whole podcast just on motivation and figuring, understanding the value of motivation and harnessing it and all of that. But that's good that you were able to recognize, you know, some of the pieces that help to bring you forward. Because, when you go to a doctor, people, I don't know how they do it, but they put all their faith in a doctor who's
Mhm.
learned some stuff in school, but maybe never experienced what you're experiencing. And to me, a practitioner that has that personal experience with an ailment or a disease or a condition, to me, I'd rather talk to that person because they know what I'm feeling, And that
Exactly.
doctor that never had cancer, or never broke a bone, or never had a lump on his neck, or whatever the problem is, he can tell you all about it from his schooling point of view. And maybe he's right, but when I have somebody that comes and takes me and puts their arm around me and says, listen, son, I know where you've been. I went through what you're going through. Well,
Mhm.
I want to hear what that guy has to say.
Right, right, right. So yeah, yes, absolutely. I think people, we need to educate them or say send or give them the message that they haven't received yet. Because that's how I feel we have to do it. And finding you for me was a blessing because or finding say Willow Creek Springs was
Yeah.
a blessing for me. Because you created when I first met you, it was oils only. You had a few capsules, but they weren't what you have. For me, the capsules are, I would say, my daily living.
Uh-huh.
When you started making those capsules, everything just even changed more because now I didn't have relief for 2 hours. Now I had relief for 4 hours. So it just kept on getting better and it still keeps on getting better. In my health, I feel that it's improving. I've had, struggles, and we'll go through that in another episodes.
Yeah.
Because I have a lot to share, especially in a few products that I want to share information.
Okay. Well, you just recently had an experience, and we'll go a little long this one because it's okay. I mean, I want to make sure you get a chance to share this most recent experience you have, because a lot of times when something's real fresh in your mind and you're going through it, you have a better you're a better storyteller than when it happened 10 years ago, because
Exactly.
it's happening right now. So let's go through. You just recently had another accident, and why don't you tell us briefly about that and then what you did about it?
Okay. So on April 8th, I had come, I was spending some time with my mom, and I decided that I wanted to take a bath. So I went into the bath. However, but let me just give you a little bit of story behind that. Sometimes I have to take my regular medications or my pharmaceuticals, and they're a little bit stronger than my body could tolerate. But however, the pain sometimes is so high that I have to use it to help me out. So the night before, I had taken a sleeping pill because I was having problems sleeping. Took a sleeping pill. So I was a little, the high from medication is completely different than a high from cannabis. However, I woke up, wanted to take a bath. My body was aching. That was going to be my relief. So
Right.
I'm getting to the tub, and I missed. My first foot went out. The second foot hit the tub, and I just lost my balance.
Oh man.
Face, and I landed on my left hand. Most of my weight was on my left hand, and I felt that it hurt, but it was like, oh, I fell. Dry myself up, continue with my day. At the end of the evening, I could see that it's getting more swollen. So I reach out for the freeze, and we'll talk about that later.
Sure.
Uh,
That's a
because
topical roll-on.
a topical roll-on, and it hurts so badly. So my mom came, we did the roll-on. She rubbed my hand, and she's like, "You're gonna be fine," and put an ice pack on my way. Woke up on Tuesday, and my hand is purple, and I can't move to my fingers.
Right. Wow.
So I go in, and I went to Express Care because it's fast, easy, and they give me whatever. I thought they'll give me a band, like a wrap, and go home.
Mm-hmm.
She looked at it and she goes, "I can't do anything for you here. You have to go to the ER." And I go, "How come?" She goes, "Because we don't have an x-ray, and I think it's broken."
Ah.
All right. So here I go to the ER. I walk in there, and I can tell you, for the first time ever in emergency, that I went, told them I had gone to the Express Care. Within half an hour, they had me inside taking an x-ray.
Yikes. That's when you know something isn't right.
Exactly. And I'm like, okay. So walk in there, and the doctor looks at it, and they keep on telling me to keep it up. It's like, keep your hand up, keep your hand. I'm like, okay. So I'm walking around like, hey, everybody. Um, and the doctor comes in, they put a splint on. And they say, you have to call your doctor because you need to go see an orthopedic. It's broken. And I'm like, how could it be broken? It's like it was just a simple fall.
Right. I just fell. Yeah.
He goes, probably the way that you felt. He's like, did you feel a pull? Did you feel a crack? Did you feel a pop? And I go, no, nothing. So he's like, well, you have to make an appointment with orthopedics. He goes, maybe they'll put a cast on and you're going to be fine, 6 to 8 weeks, and that's it. So I'm like, okay. And I'm going, why did it have to be my left hand? Because
Right.
I'm left-handed. So, so okay, whatever. I called my doctor and within 2 days, I had the appointment to orthopedics. They told me that I was not going to be able to go see him until the 18th of June. But then they called me back, and like I said, I didn't know how much of an emergency it was, the breakage. So within 2 weeks, I was having surgery. On the 25th, I had surgery. 2 weeks after that, they put a splint in. went in to see the orthopedic doctor again. He pulled the stitches. He goes, I can't believe how quickly it's healing. I know why it's healing so quickly.
Right.
So he pulls the stitches out, and he goes, he just kept on looking, and I go, what's going on, doctor? He goes, I just haven't seen anything. He goes, I have to put your stitches now. I'm supposed to have stitches for 4 weeks.
Right.
And it was from when I went to, and so he kept on, going, okay. So he pulls them out, and he goes, what are you doing? So I told him, I said, I'm not taking the really hard medicine. I'm using CBD with THC, and also have been using a topical on it. He goes, okay. He goes, well, next time that you come, he goes, can you bring me that spray? And I was talking about the first response.
Right. The
So
wound spray, yeah.
when he looked at it, everything is fine. I have to go back to get some paperwork from him. So I brought him the little bottle, and he still was looking at me. He goes, I can't believe it. Let me look at it. And I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah.
But really, really healed.
It looks like it's
since
a
the
little
surgery.
scratch that you got a week ago.
Yeah. So it's completely, and I just can't believe myself, and I can't believe what his reaction was. But
Yeah.
I consume it, plus I use the topicals, and I think using the CBD every day is what helps your body heal, because it's just making sure that the skin is healing well. It just helping with the inflammation is one of the greatest things.
Well, and a
Sorry,
reminder with the
I get
CBD and the
excited
whole
about
plant
this.
extract products, they work with your body's regulatory system. So the whole thing is they help like inflammation. Reducing inflammation is hugely important for a lot of reasons, but your body makes inflammation for a purpose. And so you're kind of, it's hard because you're going against your own body. Your body's trying to help you by giving you all this inflammation, but it overdoes it to the point where it causes you more harm than it helps. And then when you just do anti-inflammatories like steroids and things like that, they have so many negative side effects that over time, over a long period, they cause you more damage than good. But when you deal with these natural ingredients, the CBD and the whole plant extract, it's working with your body's internal regulatory system, and it's helping your body to help itself. And I think that's the key to some of these, sort of miracle stories that we hear. And when a doctor who's used to watching people heal, that doctor probably had watched hundreds of people heal from that or similar surgeries, so he knew what to expect. And that's why he kept looking back at it. And I don't know how many times I've had people tell me stories about these doctors that are just like, they can't believe what they're seeing. And that's huge. I think that people really need to pay attention to that. It still blows me away that, each person has to be somehow convinced that this natural and safe course of action, and even if it doesn't work perfect, not everything does. Like, you don't know, is this going to work? You're like, oh no, this stuff's a bunch of junk because it didn't work. Well, first of all, what would it have been like if you didn't do it? And you'll never know that answer. And number two, it didn't hurt you, did it? And I
No.
think that's important, because when you look at the pharmaceutical solutions, the surgical solutions, the chemotherapy solutions, all of these solutions that doctors have, that Western medicine, that insurance companies provide, that the big pharma companies provide, every single one of them have dangerous and potentially lethal side effects that we all go, that's okay, it's worth the chance. But when
Right.
it comes to the natural choice, a lot of times people are like, oh, I don't know. And I just think that it's important. The education, that's why we do this show. That's why I'm always talking about it. That's why I bring in people that have all these different experiences, because I think it's just important that we evaluate ourselves and look at it and weigh it out and say, well, what's the risk? What's the possible reward? And is it worth trying? And is it worth putting an effort in? Because,
Right.
when when you treat yourself, you assume more than one role. Like it's easy to be a patient, right? And either listen to the doctor or don't, but you don't ever carry the blame, right? It's the doctor
Right.
gave me this, the doctor made me do this or whatever. But when you work on natural solutions, you take the role of the physician and the patient. And so now all of a sudden you got to do the work. You
Right.
got to be responsible, and it's hard. Most people don't want to take all that on.
Well, I think you have to have a little bit of passion for what it is that you're doing, and you
Mhm.
have to believe. I mean, if you don't believe, I mean, if it doesn't work for me, how can I promote it? So
Exactly.
for me, it has been a great benefit to be able to promote my company and, Yardley'sNaturals.com. I want my clients to feel that it's not just a one place that, one option of all the CBD companies. I
Right.
want them to know that, that Yardley's carries what they need, and they're not only buying a product, they're also getting somebody who's going to check on them and go, hey, how is that working for you?
Hmm.
People don't want to be bothered, and you know those people, and then you call them once and you never call them again
Right.
until they reach out to you, and they end up reaching out and going,
Right, on their own time.
yeah, it's like, oh, you called and that was really nice. I have a question, and then that's how I develop the clients. Having this injury, it sucked, but at the same time, it was a benefit, or maybe I made it a benefit by being in there, um, because made friends with the nurses, made friends with the people, especially the people who put the cast on and
Right.
do. They're some of them are called. Actually, they became my clients. I went with a bag full of samples. I passed them out, and one of the ladies, and also I went in there to show them, and they're like, oh my god, I can't believe it. So I have a couple of orders of the first response, and I got a few clients. So I
Nice.
taking advantage of the opportunity, taking advantage of something bad and making it good.
Well, I think we're about out of time, but I definitely want to recommend, if anybody's listening to this and they're even curious about natural products, CBD, cannabis-based products, you've got a wealth of experience and you cover a wide range of territory. I mean, you do phone consultations all across the country, even all across the world. And you've helped people in all across the United States and in I don't know how many other countries. So how does somebody get a hold of you, even if it's just to have an initial consultation or to hear, what your thoughts are about a situation? How does somebody get a hold of you?
You could go to my website, which is Yardley'sNaturals.com, or you could reach me by phone, 714-936-9053.
Fantastic. And of course, if they click on the link in the website where the podcast is, you can see your whole bio and all the contact information. Well,
Thank you.
Yanni, thank you so much. It's been a great experience. I knew sooner or later I'd get you in here. And now that we've begun, you see how easy it is.
Yes.
And hopefully, I know we've got so much more to talk about, so many more topics to get into, and I'm encouraging more and more dialogue. So, thank you, and thank you all for participating and supporting the show. And we will see you next time.